Guys, coming around, and this is going to be my review for Agent Carter, but it's different this time because, of course, for the next 2 weeks they will be airing 2 episodes. So this is going to be my review for episode 6 and 7. Episode 6, Life of the Party, and episode 7, Monsters. Now, let me just say that I understand why they need to air 2 episodes. I definitely understand that. I mean, I guess that we need to get to Agents of Shield. I get it. It's fine. I don't have a problem with them rushing the season because honestly these 2 episodes were just so great that I'm happy they were put together because I really couldn't wait for a week for these episodes because they were so great. Definitely the best episodes of the season. Both episodes were fantastic. I love both these episodes. There's so much that happens in both these episodes, and let's just get into it because there's a lot to talk about, and let's just get to it because, like I said, there's a lot to get into. So it seems to be the main thing going on right now is saving Wilkes. We see Wilkes, he finds himself in a shady realm, being drawn toward the darkness. He snaps out of it and tells Peggy about it. He says he's lost control and that he's at the whim of a dark force. And Peggy suggests building a containment unit like the one from Isodyne for himself. And Wilkes is very hesitant. He doesn't know if this is the best thing to do. But Peggy reminds him about how he became tangible after touching Jane Scott's tissue sample. And Chadwick walks in on basically Agnes talking to herself. They begin arguing, and Chadwick tells her that he's arranged to have the Council of Nine meet with her. This is unpresented, as the Council never meets with outsiders, especially women, so it's clear that he is, again, just doing this to make himself look good. I mean, you really do see, again, he doesn't care about her. He doesn't care about her at all, and he doesn't even care that there's, like, the zero matter dripping from her forehead. He doesn't care. So remember how I said we hadn't seen a lot of Anna in the past few episodes? Here we see a lot of her, and actually something really major happens to her in episode 8, which I will get in, well, episode 7, actually, which I will get into. So Anna watches as Jarvis treats Peggy's wound. She questions the wisdom of Peggy heading for the lab when she should be resting, because as we know, Peggy was very badly hurt in the last episode. She can barely walk, and I like that that's not stopping Peggy. It goes with her character. It makes sense for Peggy. She's not going to let something like, an injury stop her from trying to save Wilkes. That's just what she wants to do. So she finds Sousa in the lab. He looks very disheveled, and Peggy tells Sousa about Wilkes' incident and the plan to build a containment chamber, but she needs to find a sample from Agnes, and she wants to acquire it at Chadwick's upcoming fundraiser. And Jarvis has already secured tickets. She plans to use a vacuum syringe from the SSR, and Peggy plans to do it herself, but Sousa points out that, Agnes will see her coming, and they need a trained, skilled person who knew Whitney, who, Agnes won't recognize to play Jarvis's date. They were gonna get, they were gonna get Thompson, but they don't really know if they can trust Thompson right now, so they can't really trust him. And basically Sousa says we can't really trust anyone that's working at SSR right now, and it's kind of true. They can't really because they know that Chadwick has connections to the people at SSR, and they can't really work with them. So I like what they decided to do. Peggy disguised herself as Dottie Underwood's psychiatrist to get her into the cell, and like I said to you guys, I knew Dottie was coming back this season. I didn't think this was the last we've seen of her, and it's not. Basically, Dottie is quick to realize that Peggy's going to great lengths to keep her visit secret and unofficial, meaning that she's here for help, and basically Wilkes, and I like that Dottie is actually going to help Peggy. I like seeing that. But you can tell that Dottie definitely has her own agenda. I mean, this is Dottie we're talking about. This is a woman that, has always has a plan up her sleeve, and it's no different here. So Wilkes talks Anna through building a device. He then starts listing all the threats and things that could possibly go wrong while Jarvis is on this mission because they don't know if this is going to go well. And Anna becomes very worried, and Jarvis shows up bursting with excitement, but Anna becomes flustered and walks off. And, she really doesn't know if this is going to work. She wants to hope, but she doesn't know. I mean, the last mission completely failed, and it did not go the way they wanted to at all. So they're really doubtful that this is going to go well at all, because it really seems like Whitney, that Whitney or Agnes, whatever you want to call her, is extremely ahead of them, and they know that, and they don't really know if this is going to work, but they're trying to stay hopeful. It's clear that Jarvis is especially trying to stay hopeful, but Anna really doesn't think it's going to go well. So Peggy asked Dottie about the label pin, about the lapel pin she was trying to steal. Dottie suggests that she was hired to steal it to unlock the secrets of the Council of Nine, and Peggy says that she's going to break Dottie out so they can help each other get to the council, and then Peggy will help Dottie get deported. Dottie knows that Peggy's lying about deportation because obviously she's going to do it, but she takes the offer anyway. So because she figures why not. Peggy leaves her, she can get out of prison, so why not? Peggy leaves her device to get through the door, and Peggy says she'll take care of the guards. Peggy leaves, and Dottie inspects the device. It splits into two magnetized halves, which she used to unlock the cell door. The guard outside is unconscious. His gun is gone. And you can tell right away that Dottie definitely is going to use this as an opportunity to do something bigger. I didn't really know what she was going to do, but like I said before, I had a feeling that she was going to team up with, Whitney. I'm going to call her Whitney because everyone else is Whitney and Chowick. And basically, Dottie walks outside, runs in the opposite direction from what Peggy told her. But Sousa and Peggy are waiting with an electrified net, which that was hilarious. I love that scene where they just put her in a net, and she's like, "Why would you put me in this?" And then they just start electrocuting her. I mean, the torture that Dottie goes through, she deserves it, but at the same time, I mean, it's pretty crazy what they had to do. But of course, this is Dottie. They know that she's gonna get away, and they need to torture her as best as they can. So Dottie, who gains consciousness, has been dressed up for a party and bound to a chair. Peggy puts a choker necklace on her that contains a tracker and a neurotoxin. And I love the line where Peggy's like, "I have a choker," and she's like, "I have one too." I thought that was really funny. Jarvis arrives in a tux and is upset when Peggy tells him that he won't be carrying a firearm, which is something that Jarvis really wanted to do. He really wanted to shoot, and I like that the show is kind of pointing out that Jarvis is very irrelevant when it comes to these things. He really doesn't get to do anything. He really wanted to do something significant. He wanted to do something awesome, and I love that he realized that, oh, I can't really use any guns here. It was very funny, and I think they're using him really well. I know a lot of people are saying Jarvis doesn't have a lot to do, but I really felt like they gave him a lot to do in this episode. I really appreciate that, I have to say. I thought it was really good what they did with him here. I really did like that, I have to say. So Whitney tries to back out of her meeting with the council, saying she can't be seen in public with the zero matter crack on her face, which is a good excuse. Obviously, people are gonna wonder what's on your face. Obviously, it's weird to just have it on her face. And Chow even hands her a veil that covers the crack, and it's clear that he's trying to help her, but he's really not. I mean, he's just doing it for himself. That is the only reason. There's no concern. There's no saying, "Oh, you look fine." There's none of that. He just gives her a veil and says, "Here, use this." So it's clear again. There's really no love there. So Peggy fills Dottie in on Whitney and the mission, but Dottie's more interested in Wilkes because, she wants to figure out what's going on there. And Peggy and Sousa will be monitoring the mission from a van outside, and Jarvis will have a communication device in his glasses, while Dottie will have one in a hat. And you can tell that they really have thought this through. They're making sure that this is going to work. And Dottie tries to touch Jason as he touches Wilkes as he leaves, and discovers that he is intangible and that he can't be touched, obviously. So Peggy and Sousa set up in the van as Jarvis and Dottie dance inside. They spot Chowick and Whitney, and then Dottie notices Thompson, and Thompson is back in this episode. I was surprised we saw Thompson back, but it made sense because we knew that something was going on with him and Masters, so I'm glad we saw him. It definitely seems like Thompson is headed in a villainous direction. Like, he's definitely not going to be with Peggy and Sousa. He's going to go with Masters, and Masters definitely seems like he's going to be one of the big villains for the rest of the season. We'll get into that. Thompson and Masters discuss the communist threat with Chowick and Whitney, and Masters pumps up Thompson for his success stopping Leviathan and thinks that he can really do this. And Jarvis and Dottie tell Peggy and Sousa about Thompson, and Jarvis wants to go abort this mission because he doesn't think that they're going to be able to do this against Thompson because, he knows that Thompson always likes to be the man in charge, but Peggy says that this is Wilkes' only chance. This is the only chance that they can really save him, and she wants to take that chance, obviously. Her main concern is to save Wilkes, because they save Wilkes. Wilkes knows information about Jane Scott. It helps him with that, and Jarvis turns to find Dottie gone, and basically Masters points out that several, and why she's gone, we don't know. We know, and I knew that she was going to go off for an own. I knew that she was not going to go through with this plan because this is Dottie we're talking about. We start off the season, they were going after her, and we know that she obviously has something else up her sleeves. So Masters points out that several members of the council mingling at the party. Dottie's about to make contact with Thompson when Jarvis pulls her away. Hugh Jones joins Thompson and Masters. Jones and Masters fill Thompson on Peggy's visit to the Roxton office, and Peggy and Sousa tell Jarvis to keep Thompson distracted while Dottie gets the sample, and Jarvis puts a stern face and orders Dottie to do her job and follow his lead. And a woman introduced herself to Thompson, but Jarvis intercedes. I like that Jarvis tried to stop it because he wants to, obviously be in the mission. Thompson immediately asks where Peggy is because, he needs to know that, but Jarvis says that Peggy is by the pool, but Thompson doesn't buy it. He does not think that she's there and moves to secure the perimeter. Jarvis regains his attention by implying that Thompson works for Chadwick, and Jarvis gets serious for a moment and warns Thompson that he's out of his depth in the political area. And I like seeing this like stern side of Jarvis. It was really cool. And Thompson is very flippant and walks away. He knows that there's something going on. He just doesn't know what it is. And the worst part is that he's not involved with it. I feel like that's really what this is all about. Thompson knows he's not involved and he wants to be involved, but he's not. This really has nothing to do with him whatsoever. And I think he realizes that. And then we get this awesome scene. This was by far, out of the two episodes, probably my favorite scene out of the entire season. This scene was just awesome. I loved it. Dottie bumps into Whitney and gets a sample, but then leaves her hat by a running faucet and starts searching for a way out. She ends up in the council chamber. She hides in a cabinet as Whitney begins her presentation to the council, and Whitney tells them about zero matter. She says that zero matter isn't about energy, it's about power. She's been trying to figure out zero matter. As we know, she hasn't really known what to do, but we know that she's had this power. She's had this power over Chadwick. Like I said last week, it seemed like that she was the one, the more dominant one. It wasn't Chadwick, it was her, and then shows them the crack running down her face. She pulls one of her lab rats out of the hat box and shows them what that zero matter can do to it. Chadwick snaps a finger. Two men wrangle Winnie to the ground. Winnie uses her power to destroy the two men, then does the same to half the council. I mean, it really is crazy what she can do here. The crack on her face grows. She turns to Chadwick, unleashes a zero matter on him, and Chadwick is dead. And honestly, I don't blame her. He really didn't care about her, and I like that she killed him, and I like that she said that I trusted you. That's what she said, that I trusted you, and she didn't think it was going to happen, and she didn't think that anything bad was going to happen to her, but now she's realizing that if it had, I think with Chadwick, if it was between him and Whitney, he would have let Whitney die. He really would have. I mean, I think Whitney knows that. That's why she killed him, and I think she did the right thing in doing that. And yes, Whitney is the villain, but you can't help but feel bad for him. I mean, just knowing everything she's been through, knowing the kind of man that Chadwick's been, I like that Chadwick's gone because now Whitney's all on her own, and it's awesome. That scene I just loved. I loved it when he finally is aware of her powers, knowing what she can do, and now she's going to use it to her advantage. I really like seeing that. So when he calls a meeting to order, she's now officially in charge. You definitely can tell that she's the dominant one here. She begins giving orders to the remaining members of the council. Right away, she is in charge. I love it. She demands full access to Roxanne and a story in the papers to explain Chadwick's disappearance. She says she's kept these members alive because she believes that they can help her with her plans and promises power in exchange for loyalty. And I'm pretty sure what she wants to do is complete power. She wants to take over everything. She wants Zero Matter to take over her. And Jones is quick to swear fealty, and Jarvis fills Sousa and Peggy in on Thompson while searching for Dottie. Peggy decides that she needs to go in. Sousa tells her she can't with her injury. She decides to go anyway, but pops a stitch to trying to open the door because it's just, again, she's really badly hurt, but again, she's not going to let that stop her. So the council vacates the chamber, and Dottie lets herself out of the cabinet. She examines the sample she took from Whitney, realizing the power it holds. Master and two guards finds her leaving the chamber. She runs, and the two guards give chase. Really awesome scene, I have to say. And again, we know something is going on with Dottie. We just don't know what she's really trying to do here. It's clear she's trying to get involved with things, and she's not really. So that I thought was very interesting. What was going on here? Really interesting stuff. And Peggy then says that she may need another appointment with Violet. And then we get this really great scene with Peggy and Sousa. I really, like I said, didn't want them to do a love triangle. I didn't want them to just be suddenly Sousa's in love with Peggy. But I really felt the way this was done, it makes sense. And if they're really putting Sousa and Peggy in a love, if they're putting them, in a love direction, I'm fine with that. I think it's a matter of time. I said it last season that Sousa's always been in love with Peggy, and Violet, I think, was kind of a distraction. It was because he couldn't be with Peggy, and Sousa's response tells her that something is wrong. Sousa tells her that Violet broke up with him. When Peggy offers to help, Sousa tells her she broke up with him because she thinks he's in love with Peggy. Peggy apologizes, takes his hand. They lean in for a kiss, and I know a lot of people were complaining about this. They said, why didn't Peggy just take a moment to think about it? Because she really doesn't have anything to think about. I think Peggy's just realizing that, she wants a man. She wants a man in her life. If he loves her, then go for it. And when the van shakes, they go outside, find a guard has landed on the van roof. They don't know why he's there. And inside, Dottie fights the second guard. She knocks him out when Thompson sneaks up behind her with a gun. Dottie dropped the sample from Whitney near the broken window, and Jarvis goes outside, finds Peggy and Sousa. Jarvis recorded the sample, but Whitney disappeared. The party ends, and they decide to regroup. They don't know where she is, and Jones then fills Masters in on Whitney's power grab, and this was extremely interesting. This is really when I'm like, okay, we know that Thompson's going in a villain direction, but can Thompson really do something like this? Because Masters blames Thompson for the mess, saying it must have been Peggy who let Dottie out, and Masters tells Thompson that he needs to smear Peggy's name so that she no longer poses a threat. And Thompson says that presents new problems, and he says straight out that he's not going to kill Peggy. He's just not going to do that. And Masters realizes, and of course it's not, he doesn't want him to kill Peggy. What he does want him to do is neutralize her, find some leverage on her, and this is very interesting. I mean, we've seen people go after Peggy before, but nothing quite like this. This is very interesting. I really like it. Sousa and Peggy then return to the lab, and Wilkes is eager to get started on the containment chamber, but Sousa and Thompson are more concerned with Dottie, and Jarvis alerts them to Thompson's arrival, and Peggy then meets with Thompson. He probes her about Dottie's escape, and of course, you know that Thompson is trying to get leverage out of her. He orders her to come back to New York with him, but she says she'll simply resign from SSR if she has in order to stay, because, she wants to focus on this case. She wants to focus on Wilkes. She's made a life here. She's not just going to go back. And Thompson tries to shake Peggy's confidence, then leaves. And I think he's realizing that he really can't do anything. He doesn't have power over her. She just simply likes what she's doing and he can't control her. And I think he's realizing this. He's always thought he can control Peggy and he can't do that. And I think he's realizing this now. And then the ending of this episode, Whitney opens up a crate containing a chained up Dottie. Whitney slams the lid shut, and you know that these two are definitely going to work together. And seeing Whitney have power over Dottie is incredible. This is Dottie we're talking about, the main villain of last season. That's how episode 6 ends. Now let's get into episode 7, which was another really great episode. We see Whitney holds a press conference at a movie studio. She's dressed in morning clothes, complete with a veil, and of course she was talking about Chadwick's death, and she tells him that Chadwick and several of his colleagues died at sea, and Whitney notices that Peggy and Sousa in the crowd, and Peggy's sure that Whitney killed the council. Of course, she doesn't really know that Whitney killed all of them, because no one saw it except for her and the men, but believes that Dottie is still alive. She knows that she's out there, and Masters and lays out torture tools in front of Dottie, but she's not impressed because, this is Dottie we're talking about, which I thought was actually kind of funny. Masters tells Dottie a story of a cruel wife of a Nazi who used to skin prisoners that he broke in 24 hours, but Dottie says that she's far tougher than some Nazi, and Dottie can tell that Masters is frightened of Whitney, and Masters injects Dottie with true serum, but she seems unfazed, and it's clear that this was under Whitney's orders, that Masters is not doing this on his own. This was under Whitney's orders, and I really like that. Pretty much everyone's working for Whitney now, and it's very interesting to see that, especially because Masters seemed like he was going to be one of the big villains of this season, but no, it's all Whitney, and I love that. So basically, she's completely unfazed. Nothing he's doing seems to work on Dottie, probably because she's been tortured before, she's tortured other people, she is a mastermind, and this isn't really doing anything to her. You have to do some really serious torture stuff. And Wilkes then talks Ava through constructing with the containment chamber. They're finishing up as Wilkes begins fading away. He comes back just as Peggy arrives, and Jarvis finishes repairing the transponder for Dottie's necklace, but there's no signal, because again, they don't know where she went. They want to think that she's alive, but they don't know where she is, and Peggy thinks that she may be out of range and suggests finding higher ground, and Wilkes questions the wisdom of rescuing a Russian spy and recommends activating the neurotoxin instead, and he begins cracking under the stress and influence of Zero Matter, then apologizes, gets back to work, realizing he can't really do anything, and Dottie is continuing to resist Masters, but he brings up her embarrassment at being controlled by Dr. Fenhoff, and Manfredi arrives, and I knew that we were going to see Manfredi, because we know that Manfredi, the way that he stuck up for Whitney, and the protection he had, and just the security in general, you knew that these two, something was going to happen there. I didn't know what was going to happen, but I knew that these two, they were probably going to get together, and I'm happy that they did here, because I like Manfredi. I think he's good for Whitney, and he summons Masters to Whitney. Whitney tells Masters that Manfredi and the Magia are providing security, and Whitney wants Masters to retrieve the rods from the original Isodyne test, and Whitney says that she'll talk to Dottie herself, and it seems like they're trying to manipulate Dottie into working with them, but Dottie maintains her flippant demeanor with Whitney. Whitney tells Dottie that she disabled the tracking device in the necklace, then grabs Whitney by the throat, begins suffocating her with Zero Matter. I mean, really crazy scene, honestly, because knowing what she can do with the Zero Matter, and knowing what we saw her do with, Chadwick, I mean, anything could happen here. Whitney relents, and Dottie tells Whitney about the sample that Peggy took, and that it is to save Wilkes, and I was wondering for a second that Dottie was not going to work with him, but then I thought, this is Dottie, this is the villain. She's not just going to suddenly work with Peggy, Sousa, and Wilkes. That's not something that's going to happen. So Wilkes enters the containment chamber. Jarvis turns it on. Peggy pours a sample from Whitney onto Wilkes' head. His eyes turn black and he cringes but becomes tangible. He kisses Peggy. The transponder begins receiving a signal, and Peggy then calls Sousa, and as we know, they have to keep doing that. So Peggy calls Sousa, fills him in on that has happened, and Sousa pretends to be talking to his mother because Masters is in his office, and of course, this is very interesting. We now know that Sousa is working with Masters, and he can't tell Masters that he's working with Peggy. So Masters says uranium was stolen from Roxanne, and Sousa needs to find it, and basically they need to find out where it was. And we know that Whitney obviously wants to get involved with Roxanne. So Peggy resolves to go find Dottie without Sousa because, she knows that Sousa's with, she doesn't know where Sousa is. And Jarvis wonders if the appearance of the signal is a little too convenient. But Peggy says she's fully aware that this is a trap and that this is very dangerous. And Jarvis shows Peggy a device called the Jitterbug, a non-lethal concussive device, which was a really cool scene. Anna overhears the jitterbug test. She runs to Jarvis with a darker jacket and hugs him before he goes. He can tell that she's worried, but Anna can tell that Peggy needs Jarvis and Jarvis needs adventure. And I like this scene. I mean, Anna's not really jealous of Jarvis and Peggy. That's not really what it is. We know she got a bit suspicious in like episode 2, but I think she's realizing that Peggy needs Jarvis in her life. He's always going to be her concierge. He's always going to be her sidekick, and she just needs him. You can't have Peggy without Jarvis. That's just how it goes. And Jarvis wants to have adventure. Just goes with his character, and I like seeing that. I like seeing Anna be that supportive wife, and I really do like Anna as a character. I'm glad we saw more of her here. So Sousa's concerned that Roxanne waited 48 hours to report this theft. He says he can't make any promises under the circumstances. Masters tries to tempt Sousa with more power and influence, but Sousa doesn't really seem interested in doing anything here. He doesn't really, nothing really, he doesn't seem interested in what Masters has to offer, which is interesting. And I couldn't really tell, is Sousa working with Masters? Is Masters trying to, I couldn't really tell what was going on here, really. It was very interesting. So Jarvis and Peggy ride out to Chadwick's ranch where the signal came from, and of course they know that Chadwick's dead. They don't know how, though. So Jarvis tries to broach the subject of Wilkes, and Peggy stomps on the brakes, tries to brush off the kiss, but Jarvis mentions that Peggy blushed at the kiss, and points out the problematic love triangle brewing with Wilkes and Sousa, because it's clear that Wilkes, I think, is the person that she really wants to be with, but of course she can't because she can't actually touch him, and then Sousa clearly loves her, and Peggy seems to feel the same way. So she's really in a bind here between Wilkes and Sousa. And I think this is how you write a love triangle. You don't do it with two men fighting over her. You do with her getting to make the decision, because this really is hard. I mean, Wilkes really loves her. Sousa really loves her. They both really care about her. They'll do anything for her. It's really hard for her to choose. I don't really blame her. They're both really good guys, and they both really seem to care about her. So she really is torn between which one to pick, and like I said, I don't blame her. It makes sense why she doesn't really know who to pick, because they both really care about her and they'll do anything for her, and she really needs to choose which one, she wants to be with. And I think it's definitely going to be something that is going to be answered before the season ends, and I'll get into why I think that. But basically, they arrive at the ranch at night. Jarvis moves the jitterbug into place. He's spotted by a guard. Peggy knocks the guard out from behind, but his gun goes off, alerting the rest. Jarvis places the jitterbug, pointing on the oncoming guards, but the code doesn't work, and Peggy and Jarvis throw up their hands and allow themselves to be captured. They're brought to the same room as Dottie, and I'm like, holy shit, what is going to happen here? So Anna and Wilkes dine together, toast to Peggy and Jarvis, not knowing, unbeknownst to them, they have no idea what's going on with them. They think that they're going to be successful. But I like this scene. They haven't really had a lot of scenes together. Anna really hasn't had a lot of screen time either, so I like that we're giving her more to do. And the scene with Wilkes, it was just nice. I like seeing it. It's kind of like those scenes in Marvel movies where there's just like a nice scene of them talking. That's very much what this felt like, and I really liked it. It was a really nice scene. I really, like I said, I really did enjoy this scene, basically. So Dottie and Peggy bicker, sorry. Dottie and Peggy bicker as Dottie fills Peggy in on what happened with Masters. Both women slip out of one of their blindings, and obviously Peggy really does not trust Dottie right now. She thinks that this is Dottie's fault, and I like that Dottie is trying to tell her that this all just happened, and Anna and Wilkes discover the danger that Jarvis and Peggy put themselves into. Anna says she misses the lies that Jarvis used to tell her, that he wasn't involved with this, and he used to just tell her that he was more safe. Just gave her that sense of security, that sense that he'd be safer. And now that she knows what he's really doing. She's obviously really scared. I mean, this is a dangerous job, what he's doing when you really think about it. Yes, Jarvis is fun with it, but it has to be a nerve-wracking job, and it's clearly something that she's terrified about. And I like seeing that scare. It makes sense why she's so scared about it. And Wilkes talks about how he's not really sure what he's going to do next because there's not really much he can do. He knows that. He can't really touch anything. He can't really, hurt anyone. He can't really do anything. So he really doesn't know where this goes. So Jarvis managed to slip free of his binds and realizes he put in the wrong code for the jitterbug, accidentally using the one for delayed detonation. The jitterbug goes off, and Jarvis, Dottie, and Peggy begin making their escape. Peggy can tell that something is wrong with Dottie and that it must have been Whitney who did it, and Dottie tells them this was a trap, but it wasn't for them, and she did not, it was set up for obviously Whitney. So Whitney infiltrates the Stark estate and turns off the security system. She finds Wilkes, and this is such a crazy scene because, of course, the last time she saw him, that's when he was supposedly killed, and that's when this whole thing happened to him. And when she tries to use her zero matter on him, he absorbs it instead. And now he has that advantage where it's not going to do anything to him. And Wilkes exits the containment unit, and Whitney tells Wilkes to go with her. They both need zero matter and can help each other. And I kind of see Whitney's point here that, it makes her more powerful, it'll make him more powerful. I see her point there, but obviously he's not interested. I understand that, but like I said, I think Whitney was genuine when she said this can help both of us, because yeah, it really can. It helps Wilkes in the sense that he is protected by it, and it helps Whitney in the sense that she has this power, and they can really become this powerful duo, but obviously he's not interested because she's the enemy, and Wilkes resists, but she tells him that she wants to change things for marginalized minorities, and Manfredi shows up and distracts Wilkes so that Whitney can knock him out, and that was interesting that Manfredi just let Wilkes knock Whitney out, and I don't know if he's working with them. I mean, it seems like he cares about Whitney, but I do think he thinks she's going too far. I think he cares about Whitney, but he doesn't really want her to be this villain. I don't know if he's going to try to neutralize her or what he's going to do, but Manfredi, I definitely think, is going to try to change some things for her. We'll have to see what happens there. So Anna calls for Sousa for help, but when Sousa exits home, he's jumped by two masked men. Anna tries to stop Whitney and Manfredi. Whitney sees Peggy and Jarvis's car pulling up, shoots Anna, then drives away. And basically, Peggy and Jarvis then take Anna to the hospital. So Anna is very badly shot. She's taken in for surgery, and it's very much like the same scene with Peggy, except Violet's not the one there. A man yells out that an officer has been shot, and Peggy goes outside to find a guard who had opened her trunk, bleeding on the ground, and Dottie's necklace is left behind. So who this guy was, we don't know. He had connections to Dottie. I'm not really sure. Could this have been the guy following her? I mean, we don't really know. So Sousa shows up at the SSR office looking battered. Masters is waiting for him, but Sousa tells him he doesn't think they'll ever find the rocks and rods, because obviously that's what they want to do. And Masters takes control of SSR's LA office. So now he's in control. It's no longer Sousa, and this cannot end well. This is definitely not going to end well, and I definitely think that Sousa really does not want to be working with Masters. He's clearly trying to find something else. I don't really know if Masters is working with Whitney. I'm not really sure, but this is definitely not going to end well. So Peggy calls SR, asks for the chief. Masters answers, and she hangs up, and she sits with Jarvis in the waiting room, still in surgery. They don't know really what her fate is. It's a really nice scene. Peggy takes Jarvis's hand, and that's how this episode ends. But overall, guys, really great two episodes. I really love both these episodes. I think they both were really strong. There were some really great scenes here. But let's talk about Anna. Obviously, I'm hoping that Anna's going to be okay. I hope she doesn't die. I mean, we don't know, though. We don't know what her condition is. We don't really know anything going on there. So my guess is as good as yours as to what happens with her. Like I said, I'm hoping she does well, but we don't know. She could be really critical. I'm sure we'll find out what happens with her next week. I'm just glad we know that she's not dead, that it's left open what's really going on with her. Dottie. Is Dottie really working with Whitney, or is she working with them? I can't really tell what Dottie's loyalties are. What is her real plan? I mean, with Dottie, you don't really know. I mean, she's been the villain. She obviously, I don't know if they're trying to not make her the villain now, but I'm really interested in seeing what Dottie's real plan is here, because that definitely is very interesting. Masters taking control of SSR, this cannot end well, and I definitely feel that Sousa is going to try to take it from him. There's definitely going to be a power struggle between those two. I thought there was going to be one between Sousa and Thompson, but I think, like, Thompson just kind of given up. Like, Thompson just like, you know what, I can't really do anything. And is Thompson really going to go with Masters' plan? I mean, he tried to, but he really didn't do anything, so is he going to try to do something else? We'll have to see. I mean, again, Masters wants him to get intel on Peggy, and it's clear he doesn't trust Peggy, so that's definitely interesting. Whitney taking control, I love seeing, but Manfredi clearly, I think, is going to try and neutralize her. He thinks she's going way too far, and I agree. I do think that Whitney might be going a bit too far, definitely. I mean, some of the things, yes, I understand what she's doing, but does she really think that does she really think this could help him? I mean, I feel like what she said there, that's legit. I feel like she does think that this could help him, honestly. I do think that's true. Definitely something to think about, and I think Wilkes shouldn't not think about it because it is something that I think Whitney is legit about, that this really could help both of them. Like I said, he can absorb it and she can use it as power, and really it benefits both of them in the end. So I really think this is something that Wilkes could take into consideration and not just shut down. Definitely that's something to think about. And then I guess the only other thing to ask about is who is Peggy going to choose her? Because we know she really loves Wilkes, but she also loves Sousa, and Sousa we know cares about her. Wilkes we know cares about her. What is she gonna do here? Because she's got two men that really love her, and she really needs to choose what to do. Um, I can understand if people don't like this storyline, but I like where it's headed. I think it's a good way to write a love triangle without making it too annoying and too cliche. I think they're doing a good job with it. But overall, guys, great episodes. Really loving this season. We have 2 weeks left. I can't believe it, but we have 2 weeks left, unfortunately. Next week, again, is 2 hours, and then we have the finale, which I believe is going to be the end for the show, guys, because Haley Atwell, if you guys don't know, just got a new show on ABC that she's doing. So I'm pretty sure this is going to be the final season for Agent Carter, which if it is, great way to close. I definitely will say that, and I don't really know where they could go from here anyway. But let me know what you guys thought of this episode. I absolutely love both these episodes, best episodes of the season by far. And we'll see you guys in the next show, which will be for tonight's episode, American Crime Story, The People versus O.J. Simpson, and we'll see you guys for that. Okay, bye.